Better, softer, yummier is this new Quest bar iteration a game changer in sustaining market leadership in the active nutrition snacking category? I'll touch on some deeper thoughts surrounding that introduction a little bit later in this content. But on January 5th of 2023, the Simply Good Foods Company did report its fiscal 2023 first quarter earnings for the period that ended November 26th of 2022. As I normally do on these quarterly updates, I'll start by running through some of the high level financial data to update you on how Simply Good Foods Company performed recently, but more importantly, I'll use the earnings report, the conference call, and any relevant publicly disclosed news to give context for expanded strategic commentary on trends that are happening within the health and fitness snacking space. For my new community members that might not be too familiar, the functional CPG brands that are within the Simply Good Foods Company portfolio are Atkins Nutritionals, yes, the Atkins diet, and Quest Nutrition. The portfolio had quarterly revenue of $300.9 million, which was up 7% year over year, resulting from a 9.8 percentage point price increase and a 1.7 percentage point volume loss. And then, if you're doing the quick math, the remaining 1.1 percentage point headwind came from a March 2022 agreement to license the Quest frozen pizza business. The revenue was also up 9.7% year over year on a quarter over quarter sequential basis. Now, in terms of geographic performance, North America was up 7.8% year over year, but international was down 16.5% year over year, which was blamed on a combination of lower velocities, timing of shipments, and foreign exchange. Total Simply Good Foods Company retail takeaway for the 13 weeks ending November 27th of 2022 increased 11.1% in the US measured channels and about 14% if you combine the measured and unmeasured channels. Looking quickly at the margin side, the company had gross margins of 36.9%, which was down 450 basis points year over year and was down 20 basis points quarter over quarter. It was noted that ingredient and packaging cost inflation, as well as trade investment, was in line with the expectations, while logistics and contract manufacturer costs were greater than estimates. Shifting deeper into individual brand performance, let's start with a recap of how the Atkins Nutritionals brand did during this quarter. Retail takeaway in measured channels for the brand decreased 0.3% year over year. Shakes were the star of the portfolio with retail takeaway growth of 7.6%. Meal replacement bars, which does comprise of about two-thirds of Atkins' total bar business, that saw retail takeaway that was down 6.9% year over year. The retail takeaway of the confection side of Atkins ready to eat offerings did improve sequentially from Q4, but was still down 5.3% year over year. This decline is due to the strong launch of the dessert bars last year. Some good news for the Atkins Nutritionals brand, though. It's estimated that combining measured and unmeasured channels would result in a 4% positive retail takeaway for the quarter. This is mostly driven by Amazon that saw a staggering 75% year over year growth. Now, let's look deeper at the recent performance of Quest Nutrition, which has continued to outshine its legacy brand portfolio counterpart. Retail takeaway for Quest Nutrition across the tracked channels increased 25.4% year over year. The brand continues to outperform the active nutrition segment of the nutritional snackings category. This outperformance is being driven by an increase in household penetration, significant base velocity growth, distribution gains, and new product introductions. I'm going to talk about the Quest bars at length in a few moments, but the snackier portion of Quest products, which includes confections, cookies, and chips, continued to prove its staying power by achieving retail takeaway growth of 41% year over year. And maybe this is hard to believe, but the Quest snacks segment is now nearly 45% of the measured channel retail sales of the Quest Nutrition brand. Now, unlike Atkins Nutritionals, adding in the unmeasured channels actually is blending the Quest Nutrition success down a bit. These account for about a quarter of the total sales of Quest Nutrition, and the retail takeaway is projected to be around 20%. That being said, Amazon retail takeaway for the quarter was 36% year over year, and Quest Bar continues to be the number one top selling protein bar on the platform. Now, I want to transition into examining what I was referring to in that introductory statement of this content. In the last Simply Good Foods Company quarterly breakdown that I did, I spent most of that time talking about the innovation pipeline and just like the innovation strategy overall for the company. I briefly mentioned something about Quest Nutrition not shying away from innovation in its core bar either. This still makes up around 55% of the total Quest Nutrition revenue. So the company needs the bar business to be healthy for any of this innovation risk in the snackier portion to make any sense taking on. Here's the good news though, the core bar business is growing. In fact, this quarter it had tracked channel retail takeaway growth in the quarter of 16.8%. Now, I want you to kind of stop and think about that one for a second, just how impressive that growth rate is for a product that already does hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue and launched more than a dozen years ago. What's at the heart of that? Well, obviously, in this current environment, there's price inflation. But if we take out inflation, what's the volume growth coming from? The classic Quest bar recently went through a major upgrade. From my understanding, they worked with the global dairy nutrition company Fonterra on a proprietary protein innovation that provides a softer bar and will also yield a longer shelf life of softness, which significantly improves the eating experience. I still haven't gotten my hands on some of these new Quest bars yet, but leadership did note that the Quest bar retail takeaway growth in the quarter was stemming from a direct response to consumers enjoying the reformulation. Now, it's still early, I think maybe 6 months or so since the earliest new Quest bars hit the market. So I'm not 100% going to say all is clear, but if the upgrade does prove successful, it will take away one, if not the largest, consumer pain point with Quest bars and provide a sustained uptick in sales for the market leader. Now, for this final part of the content, I just want to run through a few like headwinds and tailwinds that Simply Good Foods Company and really the entire market will be facing in the upcoming year. Firstly, retailers continue to be concerned about foot traffic. That's a positive for market leaders as these retailers understand bigger brands in the category have the ability to drive foot traffic into their stores. Now, secondly, various data points are showing a deceleration of demand overall within the food category, but a growth in private label. Now, the good news here is that private label competition is low in functional CPG, most functional CPG categories, and Quest Nutrition and Atkins Nutritionals over index in mid to upper income households that aren't necessarily getting as hurt to the same level. Now, thirdly, consumers are being a little bit more cautious with their spending, but because snacking, be that on the indulgence side or on the health related side, provides a lower cost enjoyment, it should be less impacted, at least in this early stage of the recession. Management did note that Quest chips and some of the Atkins snack bars had price elasticities of demand that were slightly greater than its estimates. That means pricing levels need to be watched as consumers are moving away from grocery and moving into value retailers. Finally, it's important to kind of mention that this is uncharted territory for many functional CPG categories that were either nascent or didn't even exist during the last recession. Throw in the fact that pricing levels are still extremely high, unlike last recession, and things could get really wild. It's going to be a crazy period for any functional CPG brand, but I still think humans will continue to invest in themselves and the categories will be resilient, even though they are considered consumer discretionary and not necessarily consumer staples. But I hope you enjoyed this YouTube video. If you did, consider hitting the like button to support me. Also, help me get to my short term goal of 2,000 subscribers by hitting that subscribe button. I'd love to see you join me on this journey, but we need to fix the fact that basically three-fourths of you that are watching this YouTube video right now are not subscribed to my channel, and that makes me extremely sad. But I do want to thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you on the next one.